I have two parrots. One of whom is a cranky old loud man, and the other is a sweeter, younger, nicer man. If a parrot bonds with you and you decide to get rid of them, that can be a shock to their system. It can be very hard for them to recover from losing their bonded partner. Considering they live for so long, it's not something I recommend for everyone. Like, get a cat. And also, you might have to contend with the fact that you got a cockatoo, and the cockatoo decided to be a complete asshole forever, for the rest of its life. Birds are just like that. They're just like people. Some of them are sweet and nice, and some of them are, they were hatched on the wrong side of the egg or whatever. And so, they're just, stompers from the moment they're born sometimes, They will just decide to yell for an hour sometimes, and that's just because, they're getting their yell out, and they have to do that. That's how they communicate. That's how they socialize. The parrots were my wife's. The older one, he was my wife's parrot. He was part of the package. It was not that I wasn't on board with it. I wasn't very familiar with them. I didn't know what to expect, and I was like, well, is this just going to yell all the time? It's going to be annoying, They're very smart, which all can also lead to a lot of, other problems, in terms of emotional problems, The older parrot, he was bonded with another parrot who he knew since he was a baby, and that parrot actually died. He was very traumatized by his older parrot friend dying. He was really, he actually kind of went crazy. And he kind of hasn't gotten over that. And it's been years, and, He was alone, which we thought, maybe he'd like having another, parrot around him. Even if they don't interact, just one in the same vicinity as him would enjoy that, maybe, So that's why the newer parrot was introduced, who he doesn't like. He doesn't like the newer parrot, but I do think on some level he appreciates him being around. But they're not friends. You know what? If you want to do a separate thing on parrots, I'm more than happy to do it. If I rewatch that video now, it's not recognizable to me. I feel like I've aged a decade in the last 2 years. Seeing people's comments, the good or the bad comments, whatever. I've done stuff on the internet. I know how that goes, but there was a lot of good comments just talking about people's experiences, and it kind of seemed like it became a space for people to share their experiences, of loss or whatever. So that was nice to see in a way. The time before and the time now is very different, and I have a lot more clarity now. That isn't to say that I'm over anything. It's not something I feel like anyone ever gets over. You'll turn around and you'll just remember exactly, that happened to me, and that's a thing that happened. And it's something you have to work around in your life, or at least for me. I can only speak for myself. When someone asks you, how are you doing, how has it been, it's really not linear, something like that. I can't tell you on day one it was like this, on day two it was like this. It goes up and down in waves. A few months after everything happened, I was in the worst of it mentally, because I feel like your reality really sinks in. I lost something like 30 pounds in a month. I should preface this by saying that I'm not a very religious type of person. Not that I have any issues with that. Most of my favorite art and most of my favorite artists are in that realm, so I really have a connection with that, but it's not who I am personally. And so when people say, I have you in my prayers, I would never be upset by that. If someone genuinely means that, that's a nice thing to say. When people will say, oh, the person who died, that person, is in your heart. Oh, they live in your heart. They're in your heart all the time. They're around you. A lot of people have that kind of spirituality. And I would really dislike to discredit someone feeling that way. But that's not very healthy and helpful for me personally, because it really helps you avoid dealing with death. I feel like you really have to come to terms with the fact that someone is gone. At least I had to. You really have to realize that no, this person is dead. They're gone. They're not coming back. They don't live around you. They're dead. They're gone. Their memories live with you. Their things live with you. Their all the good things. But if you trick yourself into thinking the person is still around you, I just don't think you ever process. The person is gone, and so it's almost like the part of you is pining for them to come back always. I feel like I was in that stage for a while. I was trying to trick myself into thinking what happened didn't happen once my shock actually came to me. Last time we talked in the video, I was running. I was doing this, I was doing that. My wife and I had a lot of things that had to be dealt with financially. When someone passes away, you have to deal with a lot of legal stuff. And it's like the last thing you want to do. But you have to. So I was kind of wrapped up in all of that. I was just like not really stopping. I was just going, going, going. So I really had to come to terms with the fact that this person who was very important in my life, who meant a lot to me, to say the least, is gone and dead, and they're not coming back. And that sounds very bleak, and it is, but it's also healthy because once you process that, that really, I feel like, at least for me, it really helped me appreciate my time, and it really helped me appreciate the memories. And I feel like it's easy for me to get in a mode of like self-pity or like self like loathing. And while it would be justified for me to be in a bad place, I can't go back to how I was before everything happened. It's the typical thing when someone dies in your life, you start thinking about like, your own mortality. And for me, it happened in a big way, and I realized that a lot of anxieties and a lot of issues that I had in the past in my life didn't really amount to much. Like my life changed in a way that I never thought it would change. Now it scares me to think that I could be wasting my life, not living in a good way. I just feel like I didn't put as much value in my time. Looking back on it, I feel maybe bad about how much I just wasted. Just being anxious about things or second guessing myself. You realize that you only have, I try not to sound like Eminem, but you only have one shot. But it's true. And sometimes you gotta eat mom's spaghetti. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. The thoughts in my head are messy and chaotic. And it's a whole mess that I'm dealing with and will deal with for the rest of my life. It's not linear. I can have moments of clarity where I can probably explain things, what I'm thinking very well. But it's very hard to just process things for yourself and like try to live. But then also trying to condense that into kind of like a package to show to someone or to explain to someone like, this is what I'm going through, this is what it is. Maybe in the future, when I'm so far removed and there's even more clarity, I could, be more articulate about it. Sorry, this is rambling, but like that's the best way I can answer the question. How are you? More to your... Oh, this is great. Hold on, let me get another angle. Can you move more to your left?
Yes.
Yeah, it's perfect. This is actually pretty good. I've been with someone for a few months, and I'm very, I don't know, maybe I'm self-conscious about it or something, and I shouldn't care, but the reason I'm kind of hesitant to talk about that is because I wonder if it comes off as like weird that this person lost someone and that, this person is like almost, to them it seems like almost immediately dating someone else, you know what I mean? I mentioned before that I was going out more and doing more things, and I kind of wanted to engage with kind of life. I stopped feeling like it was weird, like, it just felt natural. I made a commitment, I guess, to some degree to myself to, even if I just date and nothing comes out of it, it's still like, it's just still something to do, and I'm socializing. It was just something that I started doing just to be a human again, I suppose. I was afraid of feelings of guilt, And maybe if I had done it when I was not mentally ready for it, I would have felt guilty. But I feel like I only started engaging with that when I had a more healthier outlook on it, and I didn't feel guilty whatsoever. I was afraid of feeling guilty. It felt weird. Obviously, it felt strange. It didn't feel like I was like betraying anything. If anything, it felt like what I should do in terms of what would have been wanted of me, if that makes sense. Like, and I can't really explain it, but I had certain like almost spiritual type feelings, and I'm not a spiritual person, but I find spirituality in like kind of like coincidences or just certain things that I can see as signs. And I don't think they're supernatural, but I think they're important to me to see them, if that makes sense. And I saw certain things in there where I felt like I was ready to kind of engage with that part of my life again. Let's say you're dating someone for the first time, and they ask you about what you've been up to, what your life is, what do you do, like how do I answer that without getting into something? I sometimes feel like because of my life experiences, I have a hard time kind of relating to people in my age. It's just like normal, like kind of small talk conversation. Like what do you talk about, right? Like, it's just difficult. People want to talk about your history or whatever, and it just that makes it difficult. in a way that's just a filter, right? If you're talking about life and someone is like put off by you talking about your life and something in it, then they're probably not someone you should be talking to anyway. When you live your life just like how you're supposed to, you might not think about realities of life because you don't face them all the time. Everything that's happened has made me more cognizant of things where I feel like I knew about them, but I didn't maybe get it. And what I got is very simple things like not stressing out so much about things because life is very limited. One of the biggest kind of realities that I have to accept was that when someone dies, what you miss the most is their whole existence, their thoughts, their feelings, their dreams, their whatever. When you love someone, you don't just like love them physically. You love them as like a thing that exists in the world, and that thing kind of projects outward. In your life, people don't think of you just as you as a person. They think of everything that is your feelings and thoughts, and all of that kind of permeates into everything around you, and people can see you in different things. And it can be something as simple as just watching a movie or a commercial or something and then thinking what the person would have thought or how they would have reacted. That hits you in a very strong way. Because you took in so much of that person, you also feel like you kind of have an idea of how in that moment they would have reacted to something. That kind of makes you realize that you kind of internalize who that person was as well. And you also have to contend with how that person that you have in your head, in your memories, in real life would have aged. They would have changed. They would have had different opinions. They would have had different feelings and thoughts and dreams. And so that person will always remain in a kind of stasis as who they were in that moment. And in terms of loss, that was a very hard thing for me to deal with. I can carry on that person's kind of what they imparted on me and what they wanted of me, because I know that she really wanted me to do specific things and really focus on my art and just like living in a way that now I'm kind of trying to, that would have made her happy, and that is what was expected of me in a sense anyway. I feel like if I don't do it, then it'll be all a waste. I need it to mean something, I suppose.
If you could tell everybody in the world one thing, what would it be?
You know how people joke that Scooby-Doo says Roro? He never said that in Scooby-Doo. Like, Scooby-Doo never said Roro.